Let me kick this off and just say welcome to everyone, and thanks for joining us for the DSM Forward Ask the Experts series. The series is presented by the Greater Des Moines Partnership and is part of our DSM Forward initiative. Our goal is to help business leaders connect, share, and exchange information and resources related to moving forward in this next phase of reopening. Partnership has published industry playbooks, business playbooks, FAQs, and other resources available to you on the dsmpartnership.com website. It's dsmpartnership.com/DSM Forward, and you'll see that at the bottom of our slide. We hope that those resources, in addition to this session, are helpful to you. So joining me today, and I do my very best to pronounce your names correctly, Donna Bishop, Superintendent of Catholic Schools, Diocese of Des Moines; Heidi Levante, EQUIP Project Manager, Iowa Association for the Education of Young Children; and Anna Patterson, District Leader for Iowa-Illinois Kinder Care. How did I do? Did I get those right?
You did well.
All right, great. So for our participants out there, again, thank you for joining us. Feel free to mute your microphone, turn off your video if you'd like to save bandwidth. And if you would, open the chat window that's built into Zoom. That's probably how we'll continue. We'll do the Q&A. It's probably easiest, but it works a little better than having everybody talk over each other. So go ahead and open that chat window up. And recording this will be available after the fact. So if you have to jump off, or if you know others that you think would have benefited from this, feel free to pass on the information. The recording will probably likely be up on the website on Tuesday when we get back from the holiday. So let me kick it off with a question, and while I'm kicking this off, for those on the line, as you have questions, feel free to just go ahead and type them into the chat area. But one of the first things I want to ask is, as daycare centers are reopening or scaling back up, what are the most critical health and safety measures that need to be implemented for the well-being of children, parents, and the employees? And whoever would like to take that first, feel free.
I can go.
Sounds great.
So with both essential centers that have stayed open through this entire pandemic, and then we had some centers that were temporarily closed that are now open, we actually partnered with a medical advisor, Dr. Ray Fabius. We partnered with the CDC and local government agencies just to make sure that we had adequate health and safety measures in place. And so upon reopening or staying open, we did extensive training with our teachers and just on those new health and safety measures. We've always done frequent hand washing. We've always rotated toys and disinfected toys. But now on top of that, our teachers are actually wearing masks. And anyone who enters the building is actually getting their temperature checked. So if you have a fever of 99.7 or higher, you are excluded from our programming for 72 hours once you're symptom-free without any medications. We're also staggering drop-off and pickup, and that helps us limit those group gatherings and ensure that we are doing proper social distancing. So we also have a sick room for children who aren't feeling well and need to go home. Of course, there's the personal protective equipment, but I can't say enough that hand washing and regular cleaning and disinfecting has been a very important part of our day.
Sure, sure. How much are there masks involved for the children? Is that part of it, or how does that work?
You know, we haven't done masks for children just because it's not recommended, and masks for children under the age of 2 can actually be a choking hazard. And so, and we know children and keeping their hands off of their face, let alone off of a foreign object that they're not used to on their face, and then they go to touch a friend, it can actually do more harm than good. So for right now, it's just the team that are in the buildings. And if for some reason we do have a parent that happens to come past the entry point, we ask that they wear proper PPE as well.
Sure, sure. Donna or Heidi, did you have anything you wanted to add on that question?
Yeah, I guess we've also added that our parents aren't allowed in the building. They're dropping them off, and we're doing a pickup of the student at curbside, so that it's eliminating that, you know, additional individuals in the building. And I think that's been very helpful for us as well. And then really of watching the alerts in regards to any of the illnesses that may, signs of the illness that may take place. If at any time a student has any of those signs, the requirement is for the parents to have them picked up. They're removed from the area and moved into a secured area, but then parents are required to pick them up within 30 minutes of that time period. So, and then of course, if there's any of all of our students, if any of the family members are become sick, they're not allowed to attend the facility for, until after 14 days on the quarantine time period as well.
Okay.
We have really utilized our partners during this time. We've been fortunate to have a good partnership with our resources with childcare nurse consultants from Every Step, and typically they provide a lot of technical support and training to childcare providers in Iowa related to health and safety at no cost. That they're funded through Early Childhood Iowa and the United Way of Central Iowa. And during normal times, they're really vital partners. But we have the centers that I've worked with in the last 2 months, their guidance has been critical, and we see them as our experts and are calling upon them daily, and know that they can communicate with the Iowa Department of Public Health on our behalf and answer questions. And they've just really been providing a vital support system for our center directors. We just met with them yesterday, and they had just received the new CDC guidelines, and they were beginning to interpret and study those. And it's just nice to have someone that is in the nursing field able to pass that information on to the directors and help us communicate with our families and with our communities as providers as well.
Great. So what do you anticipate going forward? Do you think these procedures are going to become standard procedures long term, or at least for the foreseeable future?
So health and safety has always been a big top priority for kinder care. And, you know, with that being said, you know, these measures right now are standard for us. And as the situation continues to evolve, we'll continue to partner with the CDC and our medical advisor and local government agencies. But we just want to continue to make sure that we are keeping the center community and our communities in which our centers are safe. So some of them might become permanent for sure. We'll continue to evaluate.
I think the importance of adapting and being ready for new information. It's such a fluid situation. You hear something different and new every day, and just being kind of poised to adapt with those changes. And I think that there'll be some times where things are tightened and sometimes where things are loosened or relaxed a little bit, just depending on what the impact is with our community. And just being ready to adapt, I think is vital.
Well, I'm sure the communications with the parents is important, because we have so many channels of communication, some really great and some a bit questionable, with all kinds of information. And having someone like the CDC or the local nurses and doctors and others to interpret what is, you know, realistic, and then how do we react to it, it's got to be a challenge, I would think. So with the recommendations on social distancing, how will these recommendations impact programming and educational delivery for the children, or the physical space design for daycare centers?
Well,
Our area.
go for it.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, for us in the education area, you know, we're really focusing on keeping those groups to, you know, that 10, and keeping them separated as much as possible. So what it is a cause for us is opening up our school buildings and utilizing a lot more of the classroom spaces, and which then is going to be more intense cleaning of the building throughout. It's limiting the opportunity for field trips, for those extra special things that we normally offer our students in the summertime especially, and that's up until June, until those guidelines hopefully in July that possibly will be released, that we can get them out and about. So it's required some more creative programming that we need to put in place. So the biggest thing is keeping that intentional grouping and being able to make sure that they're staying with the same instructors, same directors, and not intermixing. So, you know, then you've got the effects involved on your time, the things that just were natural, such as going to the restroom, lunch breaks. You're limiting that space. You're having to be more physically conscious is in regards to when they're crossing in paths. So it's a lot more scheduling. So those things that, again, before we just were more organically, now everything has to be very rigid within scheduling to try and keep them as safe as possible.
Which has got to be a challenge given that kids aren't all that great at being regimented, if you will.
Right.
Well, and I think we're asking educators to create new normals. I mean, things aren't always, the new guidelines aren't always developmentally appropriate. It isn't normal for young children to social distance. It isn't normal for them to be restricted in their materials like plush toys and sensory activities and mealtime. It's not normal for us to tell them to not play with one another and to avoid that social interaction. So, you know, I think all those practices that promote that important social and emotional growth at a really critical time for them, I mean, those are certainly factors in trying to navigate these changes. Sure, I just think that the children are learning new social norms during this time that are going to impact them now and impact them into the future. And I think that's really something as educators that we need to be mindful of and be prepared to address as we move forward. I'm not sure I have all the answers to those situations, but I do think we need to be thinking about how that's going to impact their social and emotional growth.
Yeah, we continue to tell all of our educators that you need to make this abnormal as normal as possible for the sake of the children. And you have to take it lightheartedly in regards to those abrupt changes, because as we mentioned earlier, it's so fluid that it's changing rapidly. And if we, as educator world, we have to say, you have to continue to take it and move with it and not show those effects, your frustration to the students, to try and help them get through it as easily as possible.
Yeah, Anna, I think you had something you wanted to add as well.
You know, similar to Donna and Heidi, we social distancing, like Heidi said, for children looks way different. But, you know, we have changed our family style dining, for instance. And so children now sit every other seat, and where they used to set the table and serve themselves out of the community bowl that was on the table, much like you do at home when you eat dinner, those are now all done by the teacher. And then I see a question about what outside play looks like, and we actually clean our play structures, you know, in between play times for sure. And even nap time looks a little bit different for us, where we're really trying to keep the cot 6 feet apart and do like a head to toe on the cot or toe to toe. But I think Donna was saying that in our classrooms, we call them pods, and the same children are with the same teacher in the same classroom every single day. So it looks a little bit different for children, but you know, to Heidi's point too, that we try to just do the best that we can.
Yeah, I was going to say, we see a question here also on how do you think this is going to impact the children in the future? Are there things parents can do? And I guess I was thinking about that because I'm thinking about some of just the not being able to play, not being able to talk to the person I want to talk to. It seems like it's going to be some mental stresses in there. I'm just curious if each of you could talk a little bit about that, maybe.
I can go for sure. So,
Sure.
you know, during this time, we have to do what we can to support the children through trauma and the stressful time. And we know that a consistent routine is important, as well as a nurturing relationship that children and families often find in our centers. That absolutely is key. But we also, KinderCare has a inclusion services team that for those children that need a little extra support, which is completely natural, we have a team that's set up to help us, give us different activities, different strategies we can try and really help support that family and build and be able to connect them to community resources. So this is a challenging time. We don't know exactly, what it will look like, what the lasting effects will be, but, just making sure that we provide a safe and caring learning environment for our children every single day, and just some consistency has been key for us, and that's what we're going to continue to do.
I think we also have to look at the care providers and the teachers that are with the children, and to address their mental health as well. What they are feeling and what they are thinking and doing directly affects the children that they are caring for. So I think it's important for us to find tools and strategies for them to manage their own stressors and their own mental health. I'm a part of a consulting team for the Iowa Association for the Education of Young Children, and we all took an emotional healing class through Project Iowa. And we've been brainstorming ways that we can bring that to our directors, our center directors, and in turn they bring them to their teachers, and then in turn can help the children become more aware of those emotions and those stressors that they are finding. Finding ways to use your breathing as a calming technique, finding ways to be more mindful with the feelings and thoughts and emotions that we are having, and how to move them into a more positive direction, so that we are able to care for the young children. I think it's really important for us to be looking at the mental health of the adults that are around these children, and addressing those. So that's something that's been kind of forefront in looking at ways to get through this time. And the whole cliche that you can't really help others if your tank is empty, I think that's really an important thing to look at as we move forward.
Just continuing to remind the staff as well that, with all the extra behaviors that we're seeing, that they need to have that additional patience and compassion for the students, trying to help them to understand all the things they're going through, and their little minds that they don't know and don't understand, because their bodies are structured on what's normal routine, and the routines have just been shaken up, since
Right.
COVID-19 hit, that we just have to really continue to remind them, patience and compassion.
And we need to be ready to shift our focus. The focus isn't necessarily going to be on the developmental needs, the reading and the literacy, and all of those other pieces might temporarily go out the window, so that we can focus on those social and emotional needs of the children. So I think we as educators need, and as parents, parents are doing a lot of educating at home, And I think
Right.
as educators and parents, we need to be willing and able to shift our focus from those academic pieces to those emotional well-being pieces. At this time, they're more important.
Yeah, that's a good lead into, I guess, the next piece that Courtney asked is, what are the things you would recommend parents be doing and be looking for?
I would just say acknowledging the children in regards to the emotions they're bringing up, and understand and let them know, I understand you're feeling this way, and talk through it, and just taking the time with them. Because right now it's difficult when you have parents working from home and they're trying to be productive with their jobs, and at the same time trying to juggle. We've added a couple extra balls with them in their juggling act of what their normal world is as well. And little bodies, they pick up on that. They feel that, they see it, and then they internalize that. And so just taking the time to have conversations and acknowledging the feelings and the emotions that they're sharing.
And keep those routines as much as possible in place. I know it's hard, and especially when there's so many disruptions to our schedules. Anytime you can create that routine within our schools, within our childcare centers, but also at home. I think that goes a long way to providing that safety and security that kids at this age really need and thrive on.
Yeah. So there's a question here from Christine. It says, do you currently, or would you consider offering curriculum that parents staying at home with their children could take advantage of to keep kids on track developmentally, either free or for a fee?
Actually, and that's a great point. And KinderCare does. We send home a weekly email of fun things that parents can do with their children. We've received overwhelming response from that for sure, and lots of fun pictures of parents sitting there at their desk doing their work remotely, and then right next to them at a little table is their little one who's working on their work as well. So it's neat to see for sure. But yes, so that is something that KinderCare already does. And I think you can actually sign up for that, whether you're enrolled with us or not. So.
Oh, interesting. That'd be great to know. Maybe if you could, Anna, just drop me a note and let me know for sure, because when we publish the information, I'd love to be able to put that link out there so people can access it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so with us in our Catholic schools, we continue to educate. We went with education, the required model, and from the very beginning, we started the third week in March and have been educating through next week. And so all of our families receive direct instruction as to things that they're working on with the students, as well as learning packets that are going home. And then we have continued programming through the summer as well.
And I think the importance of reading, that's something that's so easy for. You don't really need to have a curriculum. You don't really need to have a lot of resources, but that's really something that you can do with your child. It provides security. It provides that academic growth. It provides social and emotional security. Just reading with your child, making sure that there's time set aside every day, and that's part of your routine, that you are spending that time reading together as a family, modeling reading, just really focusing on that as something to create that normalcy in your life.
I also suggest I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that's a great idea for the parents that are stressed. Is go get a fiction book, sit down with your kids, and read right next to them. It's a little de-stressing for the parents too.
It's such a good stress reliever.
Heidi, we lost your mic.
I encourage is that they, especially with the summer months coming up, is to set up a monthly calendar and do it by weeks with their children. Have them create activities and talk about what it is, again, so that you can have routine in your day, so that they know when they wake up, you know, some of the things that they can expect for the day, because that routine is so important. And to be able to have them help brainstorm with those activities and really do a change up on it. Littler students, little children, if you can take those toys and change them out, you know, so that they're seeing different toys that they're playing with, it helps them to stay more engaged, and change them out on a weekly, every 2-week basis, so that when you bring them back in, it's like it's new play again. Sometimes it's, if they have all of them all at one time, it's too overwhelming for them to decipher which ones they're going to be playing with. But I really encourage calendars so that they can see and be a part of, and don't have to continue to ask mom or dad, what's next, or I'm bored. They've been a part of creating their day.
Yeah, that sense of ownership over and a little bit of control with what the day is going to look like is so incredibly important. And that visual, you know, to be able to see in their own terms what's next is important for their little bodies. They can anticipate and count on that happening is really good for their growing brains.
There's a note here from Jennifer. It says Campfire Heart of Iowa is offering a weekly themed curbside camp and literacy component starting June 1. That's great to hear. Are there other resources you're seeing out there that piqued your interest that you might be willing to share?
I know that the public libraries have been closed for the last couple months, but I know that you can get a virtual library card, that they are starting to rev up their programming. I've heard some of my centers are talking about things that you can do through the Art Center. There's just a lot of out of the box thinking as far as how field trips and how visits are going to look a little differently. And I do think there's a lot of community resources if you do a little searching. Places that you typically would have visited this summer, check out what they're planning to do virtually or online. There's just a lot of organizations and community partners that want to help.
Well, I haven't seen any more questions come in. Anything else any of you would like to add? Otherwise, I think we'll start to wrap this up.
I guess I would encourage any parents to take advantage of this time. I know it's hard to see it that way, but you're not going to have this time probably ever again to spend this time with your students and with your children, I should say, and try and embrace it as much as possible.
I would agree with that too.
Yeah, to look for those opportunities. They're there. There are a lot of silver linings, and I think that's part of shifting that thought process to the positive can really make a big difference in the way we spend our days.
Yeah, I've read several interviews with people who are, you know, CEOs of companies, ladies and guys that are now running their companies from home, that are used to being gone all the time, talking about the struggle of it, but also saying it's become the most rewarding thing they've ever done because they're getting so much more time with their children. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. Well, Anna, Heidi, and Donna, thank you so much for joining us today. And I would ask, again, if you think of anything over the weekend, any resources or anything we can push out there and include as part of this when we post on Tuesday, I would really appreciate it if you could send those to me.
Yeah,
absolutely.
All right. Well, again, thanks everybody. And I appreciate you joining us. And any of the other resources you might be looking for, just take a look at this web address at the bottom of your screen. And with that, we'll end the call. Thanks, everybody, and have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much for having us, Mike.
Yes, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Good day. Bye-bye.